We had the story a little earlier this week. It was Monday. No, Monday or Tuesday. The New York Times story about all of the child labor from the completely open southern border and the young illegal entrants, kids who are coming in illegally at the southern border, and then how the administration, despite all of their protestations, that it's all about the compassion and they don't want to separate kids from their families, but the kids are separated from their families anyway because 250,000 in the past 2 years have crossed the border just on their own, and then they get sent to sponsors whom they barely know, and then they're put to work sewing, Made in America J. Crew tags on J. Crew clothes, which Michelle Obama loves the J. Crew clothes, or they'll be stuffing Cheerios into boxes and, sucking in Cheetos, Flamin' Hot Cheetos dust, all this. Well, now the feds, according to NBC, on the heels of that story, are expanding a probe into migrant child labor in slaughterhouses. So they were trying to figure out how some of those, 250,000 kids in the past 2 years coming across the entirely open southern border from Central America wound up working in slaughterhouses across the country. Well, I mean, it's not really, you have to investigate to find out how that happened, because I can tell you how that happened. New York Times just told you how that happened. They found kids who entered the country illegally cleaning slaughterhouses. So they're working with the Justice Department to examine whether a human smuggling scheme brought them in. Yeah, it was a human smuggling scheme. It's called the Biden administration. It is a human smuggling scheme. They've been processing these kids as indentured servants. By keeping a completely open southern border, all of these entities are able to get in cheap child labor. And they say at the heart of the investigation, they're looking at kids like as young as 12 and 13 years old that are doing jobs that are supposed to be for actual legal adults. And they have been presenting identification that have been stolen from U.S. citizens. So last month, the Labor Department found that the Packers Sanitation Services, Inc., known as PSSI, employed 102 children at 13 slaughterhouses across 8 states. The kids, they're so young that the jackets, like plastic jackets and the protective gear that they have to wear is too big for them. And they said that they had 102 kids at 13 slaughterhouses across 8 states. They were cleaning blood and animal parts off the floor of meatpacking plants by night and going to school during the day. So they said that they're looking at smugglers who may have provided children with false identities and led them to dangerous jobs. I'm sorry, I'm looking at some of the photos of these. And I mean, there are some photos that are out there. You can tell that they're kids. And the people who are hiring, this is what the people who are hiring for this, one of the things the New York Times piece said, as they were talking to, and they used everyone's names. It wasn't sources say. They were talking to some of the people who are hiring them at these companies, and they say that an adult will go in for the interview, and then a kid shows up for the job. So that's your fault for not running a tighter ship. If someone is going in for an interview and then an entirely different person is showing up for the job, that means that you have obvious holes in your whole setup at your business. And you're allowing anybody to come on in. That's a dodge from these companies. It is an absolute dodge because we didn't know someone else. That's your problem. You should be there checking who's coming into your facility and making sure that it's not a child. Especially one who illegally entered the country. They said that they'll present identification that shows that, they are definitely not, some of them, their IDs will say they're 30-something years old, and it's a 12-year-old. I mean, when it's that, this is not like, they're 18 or 21, and it's like an older-looking teenager. I mean, in some of these instances, you can tell some of these people, these companies, don't even check. There's a reason why certain Republicans drag their feet about the border. There's an addiction to cheap labor. It is super unpopular to say in Republican circles, but it needs to be said. This is one of the reasons why, that's why you've had previous administrations not get things done. Because there is a segment of the Republican Party that wants to drag their feet. It's both parties. Now they can sit here and look at the people who are providing the kids with the false IDs, but that's not going to solve the problem. People hire them. They wouldn't be doing this if people weren't hiring them. And they wouldn't be doing this if the kids weren't sending money back to pay off the cartels to help smuggle them across the border. The cartels are making such fat bank off this, it's crazy. So it's from the Justice Department. They're looking to see whether the kids are a part of a scheme. Of course they are. As I said, we just answered that. The PSSI spokesperson said the company has not been contacted by law enforcement. They have no knowledge of any kind of investigation. They said, we always comply by the law, and we use the government's E-Verify system for new hires. Do you, though? But they said that there was a former PSSI employee that hired the same known minor twice under two different names within 6 months. And those are according to internal company documents. And they said, oh, well, no, it's a former manager with that same company said that it was common to kind of look the other way when someone presents an ID that looks like it's, a fraudulent ID. One of the other companies that's involved in this too, and that was in the New York Times piece, is Ben & Jerry's. And as Kane has noted, Ben & Jerry's, aren't they all about like progressive and they honor and stand with immigrants? Aren't they one of those? They're like a hippy dippy company. They make it known. They're insufferable. They make it known. I just think if you're going to be a jackwagon, then your food needs to be so good that people ignore the fact that you're a jackwagon because your food's so good. I just think that they're writing checks with their mouths that their ice cream can't cash. But they have apparently a whole bunch of illegally children who entered illegally here in the country working for them. Did you know that? 13 and 12-hour days making that Ben & Jerry's ice cream. That was a whole thing that the New York Times busted them on. So they can't say here, they literally have flavors called pecan resistant. They literally put on their stupid ice cream, we honor and stand with women and immigrants and people of color, millions of activists, allies. They put all this stuff down there, but apparently they didn't realize that they use the labor of children who entered the country illegally where it concerns milk production. Didn't know that, did you? Ben & Jerry's, they all talk such a great game, but they don't care. They look the other way. I was sharing with you the other day, of these kids that are doing this, they can sit here and investigate the 6 ways to Sunday. They're not looking at the cause. You can sit here and investigate the people who are giving these kids fake IDs, and you know what? It's not going to do a damn thing. They're still going to keep giving these illegally entering kids fake IDs because the businesses hire them, the government doesn't hold them accountable, the administration doesn't do anything about the border, the cartels make money off of it. It is a vicious cycle, and as long as people are getting paid, nothing is going to get done. Nobody wants to lose that money. Cartels, it's a boon for the cartels. You got Democrats and Republicans that keep getting elected. Especially these Democrats. They ain't said a damn thing. You know what? They can't. This is how pathetic it is. They can't say a thing about how bad this has gotten. 250,000 in 2 years. That's just, I'm not even kidding. Even Border Patrol saying, this isn't like 22-year-olds pretending to be kids. It's like legit under 18. And they're working in these, factories and slaughterhouses and all this. 250,000 in 2 years because of this administration's policies. And remember that we lost contact with we can't get a hold of 86,000 of them. And of that, a third, Department of Immigration just totally lost all contact. And Xavier Becerra at HHS has been telling everyone, you better process and get them out into the interior faster and faster. Sickening.